Whenever you go to get on board an aircraft, there are an awful lot of formalities that have to be gone through. So the other day, I took Blue Peter cameras to London Airport and did everything passengers have to do before they actually get on board their aeroplane. John drove me there in his car.
You enter London Airport by tunnel, which runs under one of the main runways. The arrival and departure buildings and the control room are all built in the centre of the airport.
We were aiming for Terminal 3, the building which handles the long-distance flights to the United States, Australia and Japan. I checked that I got my ticket and passport with me. All I needed now was my suitcase, and I was all set to begin my journey.
Thank you, John.
Have a nice trip.
Bye.
Bye.
With all the traffic around, I'm not surprised London Airport is the busiest international airport in the world. The first thing I had to do when I arrived in the departure hall was find the BOAC check-in desk. It's here that you have to hand your ticket in and also have your luggage weighed. There's a limit to the weight each plane can carry, so each suitcase has to be weighed individually. I handed my passport to the stewardess who, as I was going to the United States, checked it for the special entry stamp and also looked at my health certificate. Next, she took my ticket and stapled a baggage ticket to it. As this was the only proof that the suitcase was mine, the ticket was very important.
Detroit and your boarding pass. The first call is 10 minutes to 12 and immigration is up the central staircase to your right.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
As I left, my suitcase was placed on a conveyor belt. This belt dives under the departure hall and carries the suitcases all the way to the tarmac. Then they're put onto lorries and loaded onto the plane. With all the suitcases that pass through here every day, it's important that they all end up on the right planes.
While Val's been checking in, I've been parking my car, ready to meet the captain of flight BA 561 to Detroit, who's just arrived at the airport. Good morning.
Good morning.
Captain Robinson. Captain, what's the first thing you do before you go off on a flight?
Well, we sign in,
Yeah.
and then check on the orders, read the orders, see if
Yes.
there's anything new since we were out last, and then go and check the flight plan. And
Can I follow you around?
yes, yes.
Right,
certainly.
well, shall we go?
Right, yes.
In the briefing room, the crew were waiting for the captain. The crew members change on every flight, so this is the first time they meet. Even so, each member is such an expert in his own job that they work perfectly together as a team.
I do. Right, now what's going on here?
In this room, the captain and his crew check the weather forecast for both London and Detroit. Also, the amount of fuel needed to get the plane across the Atlantic is worked out here. This meeting obviously was very important, so I kept well out of their way.
While John was at the briefing, I was making my way to the immigration control, which is where you have your passport checked to see if it's up to date, and also that you've got all the necessary visas and certificates for travelling abroad. Formalities over, I left for the departure lounge.
I was walking with the captain to his plane, and he had to get there early for the pre-flight checks. The plane he was going to fly across the Atlantic was the magnificent Super VC-10. It would take this plane only 8 hours to do the 3,800-mile journey to Detroit.
By now, I'd arrived in the departure lounge and had to wait until my flight was called over the loudspeakers. It was time for a read.
Not in the cockpit, though. The crew were extremely busy checking the complicated mass of instruments that are necessary to fly a giant jet.
I'm connected. Compasses. I've got 244 my side, Captain.
241.
And on the standby.
Standby is 250.
Takeoff warning horn. Checked. Autopilot master switch is on.
The only thing I really recognised was the joystick, and even this had a special instrument connected to it for checking its performance. All this is done before the passengers arrive at the plane. They are still in the departure lounge.
BAC to Boston and Detroit flight 561 now boarding. Please follow the signs.
This was it, time to go, so I collected my papers and had to find my way to gate 15. London Airport is full of corridors, and I think I entered the largest one that I've ever seen. It stretched for what seemed miles. This is where the excitement of a plane journey really comes to a peak. You know that in a few minutes you'll be in the plane and away. It was now that I was beginning to wish I really was going to Detroit, especially when I saw the final ground stewardess waiting to take my boarding card. The VC-10 was standing at gate 15, which is the latest way of boarding an aircraft. There's no walking across the tarmac in the open air here. You walk straight down the ramp and onto the plane. You really wouldn't know you were going onto a plane if you didn't look out of the window and see two of the jets staring back at you.
It was time I left, so having wished the crew good luck, I collected Val, or else I think she would have been off to Detroit. As soon as we left, the door was sealed and the corridor started to slide gently back, leaving the plane clear for taxiing. From stand 105, the plane started to move on the first stage of its 3,800-mile journey to Detroit. The control room in the center of the airport now takes control of the aircraft's movements. The men inside are all in contact with every plane landing, taking off and taxiing. From up here, the men can see all over the airport, and they get a splendid view of our Super VC-10 starting to taxi. The plane at this stage isn't under its own power, it's been towed. But as soon as it's lined up, the ground movement controller will give it instructions on which runway to taxi. As soon as the tow bar is removed, the great jets are revved up and off she goes.
113, turn right now, 4117.
When the Super VC-10 gets to the end of the runway, final clearance for takeoff is given.
Roger, 77 to the course, clear for takeoff on course fully.
And engines screaming, down the runway she races. Flight BA 561 to Detroit is away.
Watching them take off like
Made
that.
it marvellous. It was a very good day, that. Well, of course, we'll all be back again at London Airport in about 3 months' time. We'll all be there, and this time we really will be getting on the plane because we'll be going off on our holidays again.
It's just as well you got your suitcase back, really, isn't it,
Well, actually, Peter, I'm thinking of taking an even smaller one because, believe it or not, in here I've got everything that I would need for a holiday. Well, as you probably know, when you're going on holiday, you're allowed about 33 pounds in weight if you're travelling tourist class. And this little bag weighs only 9 pounds. Well, you probably don't believe that I've got all the things I'd need for a holiday in here, but just have a look at this. I'm going to unpack it and show you just what I have got in here. First of all, a day dress, 2 day dresses, 3 day dresses, 4 day dresses. And, of course, they're all drip, dry and uncrushable. I've got here a long evening dress, 2 long evening dresses there. And what have we got here? A slip, a beach hat, bikini. There's the top and the bottom of the bikini. It's rather like a magician, this, isn't it? This is a nightie and a negligee to go with that. There's a pair of pants and a bra, 2 pairs of tights, another bra and a roll-on. And what else have I got? 2 more pairs of pants. And a pair of slippers, of course, for the evening, because those would be very useful with the evening dresses. I've got some more stockings, 2 more pairs of stockings, and some smart shoes for the day here, very useful again, for smartening up when you're going around the town perhaps. Some little slippers here, and some casual sandals. And there you are, everything that I would need for a holiday. 25 items altogether. But 100 years ago, if you were packing, it would have been a very different matter. Instead of a small suitcase like this, I would have had to have had great trunks like these. And Peter's very kindly bringing one in for me.
And it's not
Is it
light,
heavy?
Barry, yes.
That is what? 30... That's just over 35 pounds. Another enormous trunk here.
You need a jumbo jet
And
for
can
this
you,
one, mate.
Can you see what that brings it up to?
Just over 90,
isn't it?
90. Well, that's 10 times the weight of my small suitcase. And remember, my small case was full and these are empty. They're made of wood, of course, because in those days fiberglass and plastics hadn't been invented. And they had to be this size because to take exactly the same amount of clothes 100 years ago as I've got in my little suitcase, I would have had to have packed all this. Dresses would have been made of things like lace, organza, and brocades, silks and things. One dress alone weighs more than that little suitcase. I'd have had a bonnet probably instead of a beach hat, and this would have been my bathing costume. Very glamorous, isn't it? Very respectable. And my, also again, very respectable nightie. And a dressing gown, of course, to go with that. There it is. What have we got here? Combinations with lace round the edge. A rather enormous pair of, not sure if they're pantaloons or bloomers. They draw in. There's a little bodice again here, another pair of pantaloons, and stays, of course. These would have been very important indeed to keep me well laced up. and another pair there, and of course, again, another bonnet. Of course, all these had to be ironed and pressed. Remember that the others were uncrushable. Well, I think it's just as well that 100 years ago planes weren't invented, because if passengers went off with all this lot, I don't think that the Super VC-10 would ever get off the ground.